Hanoi, where Chinese President Xi Jinping is paying a state visit. This is, of course, Mr. Xi's second visit to Vietnam as China's head of state and the top leader of the Communist Party of China. Before coming to Hanoi, Xi concluded a two-day visit in the central city of Da Nang for the APEC Economic Leaders Meeting. Again, if you're just joining us here on CGTN, you're looking at live pictures coming out of the Vietnamese capital, Hanoi, where a welcome ceremony is being held in honor of President Xi, who is paying a state visit to Vietnam after a trip to the Vietnamese city of Da Nang for the APEC Economic Leaders Meeting. President Xi, of course, is also General Secretary of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China. He is expected to hold talks with the head of Vietnam's Communist Party, Nguyen Phu Trong. There, live pictures in Hanoi, the Vietnamese capital, where a welcome ceremony is taking place to welcome Chinese President Xi Jinping. He is expected to hold talks with high-level Vietnamese officials, including President Tran Dai Quan and the chairwoman of the National Assembly, Nguyen Phi Kim Gan. Tran and Quan visited China earlier this year, and Mr. Xi has said China and Vietnam need to work in joint efforts in their pursuit of dreams of national strength and prosperity. Vietnam is the first leg of the Chinese president's two-nation Asia tour. On Monday, he will pay a state visit to Laos. Of course, the state visit to Vietnam to Hanoi follows President Xi's stop in Da Nang for the APEC Economic Leaders Meeting. If you're just joining us here on The World Today, we're looking at live pictures of a welcome ceremony in Hanoi, Vietnam, where Chinese President Xi Jinping is paying a state visit. Mr. Xi, of course, have had a very busy schedule there. First to the APEC Economic Leaders Meeting in Da Nang, and now to Hanoi, to kickstart his state visit to the country. This is Mr. Xi's second visit to Vietnam as China's head of state and the top leader of the Communist Party of China. Before coming to Hanoi, Mr. Xi concluded a two-day visit in the central city of Da Nang for the APEC Economic Leaders Meeting. The president, who is also General Secretary of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, is expected to hold talks with the head of Vietnam's Communist Party, Nguyen Phu Truong. Mr. Xi is also set to meet with President Tran Dai Quan and the chairwoman of the National Assembly, Nguyen Thi Kim Gan. There, the Chinese president being greeted by Vietnamese officials as a welcome ceremony is being held in his honor. Tran and Quan visited China earlier this year, and Mr. Xi has said China and Vietnam need to work in joint efforts in their pursuit of dreams of national strength and prosperity. Vietnam is the first leg of the Chinese president's two-nation Asia tour. On Monday, he will pay a state visit to Laos. Again, you're looking at live pictures coming out of Hanoi, where a welcome ceremony is being held to welcome visiting Chinese President Xi Jinping. Also watching this welcome ceremony here with us in the studio is Professor Wang Yiwei from the School of International Studies at Renmin University. Professor Wang, you were talking about the four goods when we describe China-Vietnam relations. I'm sorry for cutting you off there. Please continue.
Well, the 19th Party Congress claims that the socialism with Chinese characteristics is entering the new era. What does that mean for the world? What does that mean for other socialist countries? I think the President Xi's the trip to Vietnam and also to Laos later, I think want to indicate that China and those other socialist countries will work together, pursue the mission of socialism, domestically, internationally. Domestically, they should pursue the sort of the people-oriented development approach and the model. Internationally, that's for the international peace, stability, equality, and justice. And then towards the community of shared future for the humankind. I think that's President Xi definitely highlights in his visit.
This is President Xi's first overseas state visit after the 19th Party Congress. Is there a significance to be made out of this choice?
Well, of course, because this is not just the second time, as I said, this is the new era of this socialism with Chinese characteristics. And then what's the Chinese plan towards the world? I think on the basis of the comprehensive reform and of the five kinds of the development approach, and then towards China and joint hands shoot together with other Chinese neighbor countries towards the new globalization, global governance, and then international order towards more sustainable, inclusive, open, and clean development. I think that President Xi will also talk with his counterpart.
We understand that this trip is about maintaining the good momentum in the bilateral relationship between China and Vietnam, because both countries have enjoyed and benefited from a very friendly and healthy bilateral relationship. How do you look at the purpose of this trip? In what ways can we enhance this bilateral relationship and move it forward?
Well, there's a keyword is the synergy. The synergy of the strategies, like China's Belt and Road Initiative and Vietnam, they also have the two corridors and the one range in the approach. They also have the Vietnamese stream and the Chinese stream, and the synergies of the socialist mission, I think, as I indicated before. So I think that China and Vietnam have many things to share. China's open reform and political reform. Vietnamese also we have some new and innovative way. And China also can learn something from Vietnam. So this partnership is so mutual learning, mutual benefit, and mutual respect relations.
Talking about these two initiatives, these two proposals, China's One Belt and Road Initiative, and the one you talked about, Vietnam's very ambitious 2 corridors and 1 economic circle. Some call it 1 economic ring. How do you think they can connect with each other, and what are the potential opportunities there for both countries, of course?
Well, it's like global value chain is changing. China, 2010 passed the United States, the biggest industrial country in the world. So now China promote industrialization through the Belt and Road Initiative, and the Chinese neighbors, particularly Vietnam, will benefit more, because Vietnam, I think, has a very comparative advantage in the cheap labor and resources. I think the huge potential, particularly for the young laborers. So I think the relations will be very complementary.
They have complementary economies, and trade has been booming between China and Vietnam. We have some very impressive numbers. China has been Vietnam's biggest trading partner for 13 consecutive years, and this year the value of the trade is expected to surpass $100 billion. When you look at this trade relationship between China and Vietnam, you know, what are the reasons behind its good momentum? What are the reasons behind its strong growth?
Actually, it's very similar. Like there's open reform, domestically reform, and internationally open. And Vietnam and China share many experience in this regard. Now the world suffers so-called the anti-globalization movement, protectionism, populism is rising in the West. So China and Vietnam should work together to push forward the RCEP negotiation, and then towards the FTAAP in Asia Pacific, and also I think ASEAN should jointly with China and other partners towards that kind of process. So that's very important for both countries.
Professor Wang, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate your insight. Also on the world today, as President Xi arrived in Hanoi for his first state visit since the 19th CPC National Congress, people from all walks of life in Vietnam showed a warm welcome.
President Xi's visit to Vietnam has a significant meaning for both countries. This is his first state visit after the 19th CPC National Congress. Thus, all of our news and videos should fully reflect the two countries' relations.